My daughter-in-law just announced that 25 of her relatives would be spending Christmas at my house. Instead of protesting, I smiled and said, "Perfect timing. I'm going on a cruise." She turned pale, but the real surprise was still to come. Let me back up and tell you how I got to this moment. My name is Margaret Thompson, and at 65, I thought I'd learned everything there was to know about family dynamics. Boy, was I wrong. 3 years ago, when my husband Robert passed away suddenly from a heart attack, I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. We'd been married 42 years, and suddenly I was rattling around in our 4-bedroom colonial in suburban Ohio, like a marble in a shoebox. The silence was deafening at first. No more morning coffee conversations about the weather or evening debates about what to watch on television. But you know what? I discovered something unexpected about myself. I actually enjoyed the quiet. For the first time in decades, I could read my mystery novels without interruption, tend to my rose garden at whatever pace I wanted, and eat cereal for dinner if that's what I felt like having. Don't get me wrong, I missed Robert terribly. But there was something liberating about not having to coordinate every single decision with another person. My routine became beautifully simple. Wake up at 7, coffee and the morning news, then a walk around the neighborhood before it got too hot. I'd volunteer at the library twice a week, helping with their literacy program. Tuesday evenings were book club with the ladies. We called ourselves the Novel Ideas, and we took our wine and opinions very seriously. Thursdays, I'd have lunch with my sister Carol, and weekends were for whatever caught my fancy. The house that had once felt too big began to feel just right. I could spread my quilting projects across the dining room table and leave them there for weeks. I could listen to my audiobooks while cooking without anyone complaining about that British accent. I could watch back-to-back episodes of The Great British Baking Show without anyone rolling their eyes. My pension from 38 years of teaching high school English, combined with Robert's Social Security and our modest savings, meant I didn't have to worry about money. Not wealthy by any means, but comfortable enough to buy the good coffee and splurge on hardcover books when I couldn't wait for the library copy. The best part of my week was when my son, David, would visit with my granddaughter, Emma. David had always been a gentle soul. Got that from his father. With Robert's same patient way of listening and thinking before speaking. At 32, he'd built a solid career as a software engineer, and I was proud of the man he'd become. Emma, my 5-year-old granddaughter, was pure sunshine. She'd burst through my front door like a tiny tornado, chattering about kindergarten drama and showing me her latest artwork. We'd bake cookies together, read stories, and she'd help me water the garden, though more water ended up on her than the plants. Then there was Jessica. Jessica Martinez Thompson, 28 years old, worked in marketing for a dental practice downtown. She was undeniably beautiful, long dark hair, perfect makeup, always dressed like she was headed to a photo shoot. David had met her at a conference 6 years ago, and they'd married after a whirlwind courtship that left my head spinning. At first, I genuinely tried to like Jessica. She was confident and ambitious, qualities I'd always admired. But over the years, something about our interactions began to feel off. It started small. Comments about how quiet my neighborhood was, or how I had so much space for just one person. So, suggestions that I might want to update my decor or modernize my kitchen. The real shift happened after Emma was born. Suddenly, I wasn't just David's mother, I was a built-in babysitter. "Margaret, could you watch Emma while I get my nails done?" Became as regular as Tuesday. Not that I minded spending time with my granddaughter, but the assumption that I was always available started to grate on me. Jessica had this way of making requests that weren't really requests. "Margaret, you'll make your famous apple pie for the school bake sale, won't you?" Or, "I told the other moms you'd help with the fall festival. You have so much more free time than the rest of us." Always delivered with a bright smile and the assumption that, of course, I'd say yes. The holiday hosting had started innocently enough. The first Thanksgiving after Robert died, Jessica suggested they come to my house so you won't be alone. It seemed thoughtful at the time. I cooked the turkey, made all the sides, set the table with my good china. Jessica brought a store-bought pie and spent most of the dinner taking photos for her Instagram. Last year, Thanksgiving had gotten bigger. Jessica invited her parents, her sister's family, and a few cousins. 15 people total. Again, not really asking, more like announcing. "My family is so excited to see your beautiful home, Margaret. You don't mind cooking for a few extra people, do you?" I'd spent 3 days preparing. Shopping, cleaning, cooking, setting up the spare bedrooms for out-of-town guests. Jessica had arrived with her family an hour before dinner, taken a few photos of the gorgeous spread, and spent the meal playing hostess while I ran back and forth to the kitchen, refilling dishes and making sure everyone had what they needed. After everyone left, I was exhausted. It took me 2 days to clean up. Washing all the dishes, stripping beds, vacuuming up crumbs, putting my house back together. Jessica sent a text the next day. "Thank you for hosting. Everyone loved your cooking." As if she'd done me a favor by allowing me to work like a restaurant staff for her family. That's when the little voice in the back of my head started whispering. When had I become the default caterer for Jessica's social ambitions? When had my home become her venue? And when had I become too polite to say anything about it? The signs were there if I'd been paying attention. The way Jessica would walk through my house, commenting on changes she'd make. "This formal dining room is wasted on just you, Margaret. We could really use this space for entertaining." Or how she'd refer to family decisions that affected me without including me in the conversation. "We're thinking of having Easter here too. It's so much easier with all this room." My book club ladies had started to notice. "Margaret, dear," said Eleanor after I'd missed our Tuesday meeting to prep for yet another small family gathering. "You seem tired lately. Are you taking care of yourself? But how do you explain that you feel like you're being slowly absorbed into someone else's life plan without sounding petty?" The breaking point came on a crisp Tuesday evening in late November. David had called to say they'd be stopping by for dinner. Could I throw something together? Of course I could. I always could. I made pot roast, David's favorite, with garlic mashed potatoes and green beans from my garden that I'd frozen earlier in the year. Emma was in rare form, bubbling with excitement about her upcoming winter concert and the huge Christmas tree they were putting up at school. David looked relaxed, loosening his tie and helping himself to seconds. For a moment, it felt like the old days, just family, enjoying a meal together. Then Jessica dropped her bomb. "Oh, Margaret," she said, her voice bright with that particular tone that meant she was about to ask for something big. "I have the most wonderful news about Christmas." I was cutting another slice of pot roast. The knife paused mid-motion as something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "My whole family has decided to come here for Christmas this year," she continued, beaming like she just announced we'd won the lottery. "My parents are driving up from Cincinnati. My sister's family is flying in from Denver, and my aunts and uncles from Michigan said they wouldn't miss it. Plus cousins, of course." David nearly choked on his wine. "How many people are we talking about, Jess?" "It's only about 25 people," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "But Margaret's house is absolutely perfect for hosting. We can set up the living room for dining, maybe rearrange the bedrooms for sleeping arrangements. It'll be like a big family reunion." The knife in my hand felt suddenly heavy. 25 people in my house for Christmas. "And Margaret," Jessica continued, turning to me with that bright, expectant smile, "you'll handle the cooking, right? You're so amazing at it, and I'll be busy managing all the social aspects, greeting everyone, organizing activities, making sure people are entertained." I set the knife down carefully, my mind reeling. This wasn't a request. This wasn't even a discussion. This was an announcement. Jessica had already invited 25 people to my home for Christmas and assigned me the role of unpaid caterer. David was staring at his wife, clearly as surprised as I was. Emma, bless her innocent heart, clapped her hands together. "A big party. Will there be lots of presents?" "Of course, sweetheart," Jessica cooed, then looked back at me. I was thinking we could do a whole traditional spread, turkey, ham, all the sides. Maybe some of those dinner rolls you make from scratch, and we'll need to plan sleeping arrangements. My parents could take the master bedroom, my sister's family could have the blue room. My master bedroom. The room I'd shared with Robert for 23 years. The room where I still kept his reading glasses on the nightstand and his favorite coffee mug. Something crystallized in that moment. This wasn't about Christmas spirit or bringing family together. This was about Jessica wanting to play Lady of the Manor in a house she didn't own, with food she didn't cook, using labor she didn't provide. I looked at her animated face, saw David's uncomfortable expression, heard Emma chattering about Christmas cookies, and felt something shift inside me. The polite, accommodating version of myself, the one who always said yes, who always made it work, who never wanted to cause a scene, took a step back. And the woman who had raised a son, taught teenagers for nearly 4 decades, and survived the loss of her life partner, stepped forward. I took a sip of my water, dabbed my mouth with my napkin, and smiled. It was a genuine smile. Perhaps the first one I'd given Jessica in months. "That sounds absolutely wonderful, Jessica," I said, my voice calm and pleasant. "What perfect timing." Jessica's face lit up with triumph. "I knew you'd be excited. We can start planning the menu this weekend, and I'll send you the guest list so you know how many people to cook for." "Oh, that won't be necessary," I continued, still smiling, because I just remembered. I'm going on a cruise that week. The words hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. Jessica's smile froze, then slowly melted into confusion. Cruise?" she said, blinking rapidly. "Norwegian Caribbean, 7 days," I said cheerfully, taking another bite of pot roast. "I've been planning it for months. Booked it right after Thanksgiving, actually, so you'll have the whole house to yourselves." David set down his fork with a small clink. Emma continued coloring, oblivious to the tension crackling around the table. Jessica's face went through a fascinating journey, confusion to disbelief to dawning horror. But who will cook?" she stammered. "And clean? And organize everything?" I tilted my head slightly as if the question puzzled me. "Well, since it's your family gathering, I assumed you'd handle all that. You're so capable, Jessica. I'm sure you've got it all figured out." Jessica's composure, usually so perfectly maintained, was cracking like ice on a warming pond. "Margaret, you can't just leave. We need you here." "Need me?" I repeated, my voice still pleasant but with a new edge. "For what, exactly?" To host, to cook, to..." She gestured helplessly around my dining room. "To take care of everything." And there it was. The truth laid bare. They didn't need me for Christmas. They needed my house, my labor, my services. They needed me to work like a caterer while Jessica played hostess at my table. "I'm not a servant, dear," I said gently but firmly. "This is my home, not a free venue. If you want to host 25 people for Christmas, you're certainly welcome to do that. At your apartment." David was staring at his plate, his face red. Emma looked up from her coloring. "Grandma, are you going on a boat?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said, my voice warming as I looked at my granddaughter. "Grandma's going to see the ocean and maybe swim with dolphins." "Cool," Emma said, returning to her artwork with the easy acceptance of childhood. Jessica, however, was not accepting anything easily. "Margaret, this is completely unreasonable. My family has already made plans. They've booked flights." "Then I'm sure they'll understand when you explain that you'll need to make alternative arrangements," I replied. "Or perhaps you could host at your place? It'll be cozy." David finally found his voice. "Mom, maybe we could work something out. Maybe just a smaller group?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he become someone who expected his mother to provide free labor for his wife's social ambitions? When had he stopped seeing me as a person with my own needs and started seeing me as a resource to be managed? "David," I said quietly. "Jessica didn't ask if I wanted to host Christmas. She announced it. She didn't ask if I had plans. She assigned me a job. She didn't even ask if 25 people would be comfortable in my home. She just decided it would work for her purposes. Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You always host holidays because you announce them, I interrupted, still calm but with steel in my voice. You've never once asked if I want to host. You tell me what you've already decided, then expect me to make it happen. But it's family, Jessica protested, her voice rising. Family takes care of family. You're absolutely right, I agreed. Family does take care of family, which is why I'm sure your family will understand when you explain that you'll be taking care of them this Christmas, at your place, with your cooking. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Emma had stopped coloring, sensing the adult drama brewing around her. Jessica tried one more approach, her voice taking on a wheedling tone. Margaret, be reasonable. You know my apartment is tiny, and I don't cook like you do, and the expense of hotels for everyone. Ah, I said, nodding with understanding. So you want me to provide free housing, free food, and free labor so that you can host your family without any cost or effort on your part. When I put it like that, even Jessica seemed to realize how it sounded. It's not like that, she said weakly. Then explain what it is like, I replied, genuinely curious. But Jessica couldn't, because that's exactly what it was like. I stood up and began clearing the table, my movements calm and purposeful. My cruise leaves December 20th, I said conversationally. I'll be gone for a week. The house will be locked up, heat turned down to save energy. You're welcome to host your 25 relatives at your apartment, or perhaps you could look into event venues. I hear the Holiday Inn has nice conference rooms. David tried once more. Mom, couldn't you maybe postpone the cruise? Just this once? I paused in my dish clearing and looked at him. Really looked at him. David, honey, when was the last time you thanked me for hosting a holiday? He opened his mouth, then closed it. When was the last time you offered to help cook or clean or even bring more than a store-bought pie? His face went redder. When was the last time you asked if I wanted to host rather than assuming I would? Silence. I've been widowed for 3 years, I continued gently. I've hosted every holiday since your father died, cooked every meal, cleaned up every mess, and arranged every detail. Not once has either of you asked if I wanted to do it, or if I had other plans, or even if I was enjoying it. Emma looked up from her drawing. Grandma, are you sad? I smiled at her, the first genuine smile of the evening. No, sweetheart. Grandma's just learning to speak up for herself. It's never too late to learn new things. Jessica had gone very quiet, her face pale. David was staring at his hands, and I was feeling something I hadn't felt in years, free. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I called in sick to my volunteer shift at the library and spent the day doing exactly what I wanted. I researched cruise deals, actually finding a Norwegian Caribbean cruise leaving December 20th. 7 days, balcony cabin, shore excursions included. By noon, I'd booked it. By evening, my phone was ringing off the hook. The phone calls started exactly 24 hours after I'd booked my cruise. First David, his voice strained with the kind of careful diplomacy he used when trying to solve problems at work. Mom, Jessica's really upset. She says her whole family is going to be disappointed. I was repotting my Christmas cactus, phone tucked between my ear and shoulder. I'm sure they'll understand when she explains the situation. But couldn't you maybe postpone the cruise? Just this once? I set down my trowel and gave him my full attention. David, honey, when I married your father, I promised to love, honor, and cherish him. I never promised to be Jessica's unpaid event coordinator for life. Silence on the other end. Besides, I continued, Jessica's a smart, capable woman. I'm sure she can figure out how to host her own family. The next call came from Jessica herself, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Margaret, I've been looking into caterers. Do you know they want $3,000 for Christmas dinner for 25 people? That does seem like a lot, I agreed sympathetically. although I suppose that's what professional cooking services cost. And the hotels are all booked up. My aunt called 3 places and they're either full or charging $200 a night. The holidays are expensive, I murmured, continuing to tend my plants. I imagine that's why most people plan these things well in advance. Margaret, please, just this once. I promise I'll help more. I paused at that. Help more. As if she'd been helping at all. Jessica, dear, what exactly have you been helping with? I coordinate everything. The social aspects, making sure people have fun. While I cook, clean, shop, set up, and tear down. It's not like that. Then tell me what it is like. But she couldn't. Just like at dinner, she couldn't explain how her version of helping involved any actual work. By Thursday, the calls had escalated. Jessica's mother phoned directly, her voice warm and cajoling. Margaret, dear, we're also looking forward to seeing your beautiful home again. Jessica's told us so much about your wonderful cooking. How kind of her, I replied. I hope you'll have a lovely Christmas at Jessica's apartment. But surely you understand, the apartment is so small. Yes, I imagine hosting 25 people would be quite challenging in a small space. Perhaps that's something Jessica should have considered before extending invitations. The calls kept coming. Jessica's sister from Denver, worried about her non-refundable plane tickets. A cousin from Michigan asking if I'd reconsider for the sake of family harmony. Even David's old college friend somehow got roped into calling to tell me I was breaking David's heart. Each call made me more certain I was doing the right thing, but it was what I overheard on Friday that truly opened my eyes. I'd gone to pick up Emma from school for our weekly grandmother-granddaughter ice cream date when I heard Jessica on her phone in the parking lot. She was standing by her car, completely absorbed in her conversation, and didn't notice me approaching. No, Mom, the old lady is being completely unreasonable, she was saying, her voice sharp with frustration. She's acting like it's such a huge deal to cook for family. Old lady. I stopped walking, staying just out of her line of sight. I know. That's what I told David. She lives in this massive house all by herself, and she can't spare 1 week to help family. It's pure selfishness. Massive house. The home Robert and I had saved for 20 years to buy. David's too weak to stand up to his mother. He just sits there while she ruins our Christmas. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not anger. Something deeper than that. Understanding. Look, worst case scenario, maybe we can guilt her into at least letting us use the house while she's on her little vacation. I mean, we could order catering and just use her place as a venue. Use my house as a venue while I wasn't even there. That evening, I made a decision that would have horrified the old me. I started documenting everything. I pulled out my laptop and began creating a spreadsheet. Every holiday I'd hosted since Robert's death, every dollar I'd spent on groceries, decorations, flowers, every hour I'd spent cooking, cleaning, shopping, preparing, every contribution, or lack thereof, from David and Jessica. The numbers were staggering. Last Thanksgiving alone, $400 in groceries, 3 days of cooking, 2 days of cleaning, 1 day of shopping and decorating. Jessica's contribution, 1 store-bought pumpkin pie and approximately 6 Instagram photos. Then I did something that felt both thrilling and terrifying. I started researching my legal rights. Could family members legally expect me to host events in my home? Could they claim any right to use my property without permission? The elder law attorney I consulted, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, who reminded me of my favorite students, was unequivocal. Mrs. Thompson, your home is your private property. No one has the right to use it without your permission, family or not. And certainly no one has the right to volunteer your labor without your consent. But what if they just show up? Then they're trespassing, she said matter-of-factly. You have every right to call the police. It won't come to that, I said quickly. Maybe not, but it's important you know you have options. I left her office feeling something I hadn't experienced in years, truly empowered. Meanwhile, Jessica's desperation was reaching new heights. She'd started leaving voicemails that grew increasingly frantic. "Margaret, I found a venue. The Marriott has an event room available, but they want $1,500 just for the space. Plus, we'd still need to hire caterers and arrange hotels." Then, "Okay, what if we just did a smaller group? Maybe just my immediate family. That's only 8 people." And finally, "Margaret, please, I'm begging you. My whole family thinks I'm a failure." That last message almost got to me. Almost. But then I remembered her voice in the parking lot. The old lady. Pure selfishness? David's too weak. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Emma rang my doorbell at 9 a.m., holding a plate of slightly lopsided cookies. "Grandma, I made you cookies. Mommy helped, but I did the mixing." Behind her stood David, looking sheepish. "Sorry, Mom. She insisted on bringing these over." I invited them in, and Emma immediately launched into her usual chatter about school and friends while we admired her cookies. David sat quietly, clearly working up to something. After Emma wandered off to play with the dollhouse I kept in the living room, David finally spoke. "Mom, I owe you an apology." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I never realized how much work you put into the holidays. I never thanked you properly. I just assumed." "Yes," I said simply. "You did." "Jessica's been calling everyone, trying to find a solution. She's really stressed." "I imagine she is. Planning events is stressful work. Couldn't you maybe help her out, just this once?" I looked at my son. Really looked at him. "David, let me ask you something. If Jessica had called me 3 months ago and said, 'Margaret, I'd love to invite my family for Christmas. Would you be interested in hosting? And if so, what would you need from us to make it work?' What do you think I would have said?" He was quiet for a long moment. "You probably would have said yes. I absolutely would have said yes. I might have even been excited about it." "So why?" "Because she didn't ask, David," she announced. "She didn't invite me to participate in planning. She assigned me a job. She didn't consider my needs or preferences. She assumed I'd do whatever she wanted." David rubbed his face. "She's not used to. She grew up differently. Her family just pitches in without being asked." "Then she can pitch in," I said gently, "at her own apartment, with her own labor, using her own resources." From the living room came Emma's voice. "Grandma, why is this baby doll in the kitchen?" "Because babies need to eat too, sweetheart." David smiled despite himself. "She loves coming here. And she always will be welcome." "But David, I need you to understand something. I'm 65 years old. I've spent the last 3 years since your father died trying to figure out who I am now. And what I've discovered is that I don't want to spend my remaining years being taken for granted." "Mom, I've worked hard my whole life. I raised you. I taught hundreds of students. I took care of your father when he was sick. Now I want to take care of myself. And that means setting boundaries." Is that what this cruise is about? Setting boundaries? Partly. But it's also about joy, David. When was the last time I did something purely for my own enjoyment? He couldn't answer. "The cruise leaves in 2 weeks," I continued. "I've booked shore excursions, spa treatments, and a balcony cabin. I'm going to read books by the pool and eat food someone else cooked. I'm going to watch the sunrise over the ocean and maybe learn to play shuffleboard." Emma came running back into the kitchen. "Grandma, can I come on your boat trip?" "Someday, sweetheart, when you're older, we'll take a trip together. Just you and me." Her face lit up. "Really? Really?" After they left, I called my sister Carol in Florida. "Maggie," she said, using my childhood nickname, "how are you holding up with all this family drama?" I'd filled her in on the situation earlier in the week. Carol, who'd never been one to mince words, had been firmly Team Margaret from the start. "Actually, I'm doing great. I booked the cruise." "Good for you. It's about time you put yourself first." "Carol, can I ask you something? Do you think I'm being selfish?" "Selfish?" She laughed. Honey, selfish would be expecting someone else to work for free so you can play hostess. Selfish would be volunteering someone else's house without asking. You're not being selfish. You're being sane. That evening, I had dinner with my book club ladies. We'd moved our weekly meeting to Saturday because Eleanor had started taking a watercolor class on Tuesdays. When I told them about the cruise, the reaction was immediate and unanimous. "It's about time," said Dorothy, raising her wine glass. "That girl has been taking advantage of you for years," added Betty. "We've all seen it." "Remember last Easter?" Eleanor chimed in. "You were exhausted for weeks after hosting that crowd." "And did Jessica send so much as a thank you card?" Dorothy shook her head. "Not that we saw." "You know what this reminds me of?" said Betty thoughtfully. "That book we read last month, Educated, about the girl who had to break away from her family's expectations to become herself. Except Margaret's not running away to college," Eleanor pointed out. "She's going on a cruise, much more civilized." We all laughed, and I felt the tight knot in my chest that had been there for weeks finally start to loosen. The final confrontation came Sunday evening. Jessica had requested a family meeting to work things out. I agreed, curious to see what her last-ditch effort would look like. They arrived at 7 sharp, David, Jessica, and Emma. Jessica had clearly prepared for this like a business presentation. She carried a folder and wore her most professional outfit. "Margaret," she began, settling into my living room like she was chairing a board meeting. "I've done some research, and I think I've found a solution that works for everyone." She opened her folder and pulled out printed pages. "I've gotten quotes from 3 caterers. The most reasonable one is $2,200. But if we split it between my family members, that's less than $100 each." I nodded politely, saying nothing. "And I've found a hotel that can give us a group rate, $150 a night instead of $200. If families double up, it's really quite reasonable." "That sounds very organized," I said. "But here's the thing," Jessica continued, her voice taking on a tone I'd heard her use with difficult clients. "The caterer won't deliver here, and the hotel doesn't have event space available, so we'd still need to use your house." And there it was. "I see. So your solution is for me to provide my home as a free venue while I'm not even here to supervise." "Well, yes. I mean, it's not like you'd be using it." I looked at David, who was studying his hands with great intensity. "And you're comfortable with this arrangement, David?" If it makes everyone happy." "Everyone except me, you mean?" Emma, who'd been playing with her coloring book, looked up. "Grandma, are you mad?" "No, sweetheart. Grandma's just making sure everyone understands the rules." I turned back to Jessica. "Let me make sure I understand your proposal. You want to use my house as an event venue while I'm gone. You'll have 25 people in my home without me present. They'll be eating in my dining room, sleeping in my bedrooms, using my bathrooms, and presumably making themselves comfortable with my belongings." "It's not like that." "What is it like, then?" "It's family. You're family, too, through marriage. Jessica, I've met your family exactly twice, at your wedding and last Thanksgiving. They're lovely people, but they're not my family. They're yours." "But David is your family." "Yes, David is my family. But David isn't the one asking to use my house. You are." Jessica's professional composure was starting to crack. "I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this. It's just 1 week. Just 1 week of strangers in my home without my permission." "They're not strangers. They are to me." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "Jessica, I'm going to explain this once more, very clearly. I will not be hosting Christmas this year. I will not be cooking, cleaning, or providing my home as a venue. My house will be locked, the heat will be turned down, and I will be on a cruise ship in the Caribbean." Jessica's face went through several expressions before settling on barely controlled anger. "Fine, fine. We'll figure something else out. But don't expect us to just forget how selfish you're being." "Selfish," I repeated thoughtfully. "You know, Jessica, I've been thinking about that word a lot lately." I walked to my bookshelf and pulled out the folder I'd prepared. I've done some calculations. Would you like to know what hosting holidays has cost me over the past 3 years? Margaret. $4,600 in groceries and supplies. Approximately 240 hours of cooking, cleaning, and preparation. That's 6 full work weeks, Jessica. 6 weeks of unpaid labor. Jessica's face had gone pale. And in all that time, do you know how much help I've received? How many times someone offered to cook or clean or even bring more than a store-bought dessert? David shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we didn't realize. No, you didn't, because you never asked. You never wondered if I enjoyed it or if I could afford it or if I had other things I'd rather be doing with my time and money. I opened the folder wider. But you know what the most expensive part has been? Not the money, not even the time. It's been the assumption that I don't matter, that my preferences don't count, that my role in this family is to provide services, not to be valued as a person. Emma's small voice cut through the tension. Grandma, why is Mommy's face red? Sometimes grown-ups get upset when they realize they've made mistakes, sweetheart. Jessica stood up abruptly. We should go. Yes, I agreed. You should. You have a lot of planning to do. As they gathered their things, David lingered. Mom, I'm sorry. I really am. I never meant for you to feel... I know you didn't, honey, but intent and impact are different things. After they left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my favorite chair with my latest mystery novel. For the first time in weeks, the house felt peaceful instead of lonely. The cruise was everything I dreamed it would be. I woke up each morning to the sound of waves instead of alarm clocks. I had breakfast on my balcony while watching dolphins play in the ship's wake. I took a cooking class where someone else cleaned up the kitchen. I got a massage and a facial and felt like a queen. On Christmas Day, I had brunch at the ship's buffet, then spent the afternoon reading by the pool. At 6 p.m. ship time, I video called Emma. Grandma, she squealed, her face lighting up the screen. You look so pretty. Is that the ocean behind you? It is, sweetheart. How was your Christmas? Good. We had Chinese food because Mommy burned the turkey. I could hear David in the background. Emma, don't tell Grandma about the turkey. It's okay, Daddy. Grandma knows Mommy's not a good cooker like her. I bit back a smile. Did you get nice presents? Yes, and Mommy cried a little. But Daddy said it was happy crying. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're overwhelmed, sweetheart. Emma chattered on about her toys while I caught glimpses of David and Jessica in the background. David looked tired but was smiling. Jessica looked humbled. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Hope you're having a wonderful time, Mom. We love you. Then, surprisingly, a text from Jessica. Thank you for everything you've done over the years. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate it before. I didn't respond immediately. Some apologies need time to settle, to see if they're backed up by changed behavior. But for the first time in months, I felt hopeful. When I returned home, tanned and relaxed and full of stories, David came over alone. How was the cruise? He asked, and I could tell he genuinely wanted to know. I showed him photos on my phone, me learning to salsa dance, me snorkeling in Cozumel, me laughing with new friends at dinner. You look happy, he said softly. I am happy. It was exactly what I needed. Mom, about Christmas, Jessica wants to apologize. Properly, but she's embarrassed. She should be. She realizes now how much work the holidays are. Trying to coordinate just her immediate family was a disaster. I imagine it was. Could we start over, maybe plan next year's holidays together? Actually, together, I mean, with everyone contributing? I looked at my son, seeing not just the man he'd become, but the boy I'd raised to be kind and fair. I'd like that, but David, things are going to be different. Different how? Holiday hosting is now by invitation only, 2 months advance notice, shared costs and shared labor, and I get veto power. He smiled. That sounds more than fair. And one more thing. Every year, I'm taking a vacation just for me. Maybe a cruise, maybe a spa retreat, maybe visiting Carol in Florida, but something that's mine. I think that's great, Mom. 6 months later, Jessica and I aren't best friends. We probably never will be, but we have something better. Mutual respect. She started taking cooking classes after her Christmas disaster. She asks before making plans that involve me. She actually says thank you. And I've discovered something wonderful about setting boundaries. They don't push people away. They teach people how to treat you. The book club ladies call it Margaret's liberation. Emma tells everyone her grandma is the coolest because she travels on ships. David has started planning annual mother-son trips. But the best part? I'm not angry anymore. I'm not resentful or tired or taken for granted. I'm free. And at 65, I've learned that freedom isn't something you retire into. It's something you choose every single day by honoring your own worth. The next cruise is booked for October. Carol's coming with me this time. After all, life's too short to spend it making other people comfortable at your own expense.